from there and saying, okay, I need to teach them this skill, this skill, this skill. But I want to do it in an order that makes sense and kind of builds on each other. So first we kind of started out, what are the parts of an informative essay? You need a claim. Well, what is a claim? It's a statement about what you believe on a topic, or a statement, an assertion about something. Okay, then the next part is, let me provide evidence for why I believe this claim. And where does that evidence come from? It can come from a text that we read, a short story, an article, a video, whatever. And then, kind of that third part is, all right, now connect the dots for me and tell me, how does this evidence really help support and prove your claim, what you're trying to tell me? So again, the idea that they're producing a very sort of simple argument, but that's mostly focused on sort of their belief, their opinion. And that's kind of why I chose identity, because that's individual to everyone. But it's also, gives them the ability to kind of use that structure of an informative essay, but incorporate their own thing. So I didn't want to feel like I was reading the same essay, over and over and over again, because to me, it's like, okay, well, we're talking about identity, which is so specific and unique to people, that if I see them kind of stating the same things, I'm like, all right, well, maybe I should branch out a little bit and make it not super restrictive. So we started out with obviously a series of activities, kind of did like some free writes and discussion on what identity is. I gave them a series of different texts that we read as a class. A lot of them were short stories or short um, like TED Talks or speeches and things about different people and aspects of their identity. So, for example, some of that was The Pedestrian by Ray Bradbury, which is a short story about a man who sort of lives in this world where he's trying to stand out and not conform to what different people are doing. We read Through the Tunnel by Doris Lessing, which is about a kind of a coming of age story where a young boy takes a great big risk and it ends up paying off, but it ends up also kind of teaching him not to grow up too fast. We read Everyday Use by Alice Walker, which is centered around someone trying to really identify with their family heritage. And then we also read and looked at a couple of nonfiction texts as well. We listened to Adichie's Danger of a Single Story TED Talk that focused on the idea of not fitting into a stereotype, or kind of don't let other stereotypes define you. And then we also read a couple of poems, The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman, where she's sort of addressing struggles in her past and how that helped shape her identity. And then On the Pulse of Morning by Maya Angelou, which again is about same sort of thing. It's kind of grappling with these ideas of identity. So a wide range of texts. I also let students do some exploration and sort of pick their own text to go along with it. A poem or a short story or an article. And so again, the idea was to teach them how to make a statement about what identity is to them and really how it's formed, and then sort of work them through that writing process of, all right, let's create our claim. What is the statement you're trying to make about identity? Okay, let's look at these stories we've read and your experience and see where we can find evidence that would support that claim, and then look at reasoning and explanation and explain how all those kind of fit together. So again, the main writing assignment was this, being able to produce this informative essay answering this essential question. But I also asked them to, draw on their own experiences with that when they were thinking about the reasons to provide in the argument. I'm sorry, in the informative essay, and see how their own experiences kind of fit in or connect with that. So one thing to help me with that and to help with the writing process is I had them keep a like a chart going after we read each story. And after we read each story or text, I would have them tell me kind of, okay, what's the main idea here? Just in general, like, what's the story about? Then I had them tell me, what is the message here about identity? Because again, all of these texts that we explored addressed some aspect of finding your identity or figuring out where it comes from, or kind of understanding that about yourself. And so they would write a statement about, okay, what did the story teach me about identity? And then I had them track a couple of quotes from each of the texts. What were the most important things you think the author said here, or what stood out to you, and what really helped teach you? So they had this great big chart to really help them write their essays. And so what we did is we took all that information and I said, okay, now I want you to pick, what are sort of three main points that you want to make about identity. And which stories or texts did we read that really relate the most to that? And then had them build their body paragraphs of their essay through that process.